welcome to this sunny, where are we? April or May? April. We're in April. April the 24th. Welcome to the training barn. We're back again. We're pleased to see so many people have joined us this morning. But this time, there's only so far been one fine art photography course that I ran some years ago. And then we haven't really spoken about it again because the majority of our training barn clients want to do portraiture. However, over the last couple of years, we have found lots more people asking to so lots of people are now asking to how I got involved in fine art photography and how I sell my work. And so we thought it was well about time that we started to share the information with you. So as always, I love it when people ask questions, and I enjoy that throughout the presentation. It often just gives me a little 2-second break to think and answer whatever question you have. So please do go ahead and use that in the chat.
And I will interrupt, Emily, so feel free at any point to put a question in and I will push her.
And I always like participation, so don't feel that any question is silly. We're a complete open book. Anything you ask, we'll answer, providing it's to do with fine art photography. Yeah. So first of all, I just want you all to put in the chat who has already started their fine art photography journey, either by taking photographs that you would consider fine art, or yes, Imogen, amazing, we know you have because they're beautiful. Yeah. Or who has started selling fine art photography. So if you just go ahead and put in the chat box. And then I just want to give you a bit of background about how I got into fine art photography. So there was a few very key moments in my career. The first thing was one very random morning in February, I think it might have been 2009, but I'm vaguely guessing, I think it was, there was 18 inches of snow in the New Forest. And when I opened the curtains, I was like, there's snow on the ground. Okay, well, I better get my camera out and I better go and photograph the New Forest ponies that live just opposite us on the open moorland. So I went out there and I spent approximately 20 minutes taking as many photographs of the ponies in the snow as I could. And off the back of that, I thought, well, it seems daft not to do something with this body of work. And the reason being is there hadn't been that amount of snow in the New Forest for something like 18 years. And so I knew that those images were going to have some impact. And so off the back of that, I went and put on my own exhibition. I sold many of those pieces. I had a lot of publicity off the back of it, and created this whole thing out of 20 minutes of photography. So that was all sort of the first initial point where I picked up my camera with no brief and to go out there and produce a body of work that wasn't attached to a client. Then I started working with a marketing company, and one of the things they said to me about my work was that I didn't have enough galloping stallions in my portfolio. And at that point I was like, I don't want to photograph galloping horses through a field. I want to do portraits, but the guy that was the sort of chief of the marketing company said, no, you definitely need some galloping stallions in your portfolio. So I then started to think about that and started to photograph horses galloping around fields and put them in my portfolio. And I then got to a point where I started having a family and children, and I needed a way that I could create income without always having to do a client session. And I wanted to create images that I could sell multiple times. So I then had that as a kind of driver to progress this part of my business. And then on top of that, I then wanted recognition from industry people, and I wanted people to notice my work. And so that's when I got qualified with the British Institute of Professional Photography. So the combination of those four things, the snow in the New Forest, going to a marketing company and them telling me that I didn't have enough galloping horses in my portfolio, having children, and having to find a way that I could earn money without having to do portrait clients, and sort of always gaining new clients before I got the job. And then on top of that, getting qualified. So that's how I got into it. So just briefly, are there lots of people already on their journey?
Quite a few. Some
Brilliant.
What's really nice is a lot of people are saying trying, which is, you know,
okay,
right.
Cool. So first things first, what does fine art mean to you? So again, go ahead and write in the chat box what you think fine art is, or what it is to you specifically. So it's a funny one, because people feel that it's some kind of important work that not really many people can reach or get to. So I did Google it, and fascinatingly, there was a really good quote. It said, fine art photography is a style of photography created by an artist. Okay, tick, we're artists, fine. Fine art photos are photographs created purely for their aesthetic and imaginative qualities. Tick, love that, because that's what I'm about, is creating images for their aesthetic qualities. And then fine art photographers create work that goes beyond merely goes beyond merely capturing what is in front of the camera. So my initial reaction to the marketing company when they said, you haven't got enough galloping horses in your portfolio, was because what I imagined was, you know, a bright blue sky, sunshine beating down on a black Frisian horse galloping across a field with grass. And to me, that's where I get the feeling that a horse is a horse is a horse. You know, when you take a photograph of a horse, it looks like a horse. And, you know, if you put 10 photographers lined up and have that black Frisian horse galloping across the field, we could probably say that the majority of them could get a shot of it. And to me, that wasn't quite enough. So that last bit of the quote, fine art photographer creates work that goes beyond merely capturing what is in front of the camera. So that goes into the next part of creativity and how you create something different and special.
So a couple of people have said creativity, top of the list. Interestingly, a couple of people have put painterly style image or creating painting style photos. And I think that's what a lot of people feel fine art is the crossover from photography to artwork, artist painting.
So actually, and if you Google the quote, just put in what does fine art mean, or what is fine art photography, and you'll actually see what's come up is well, certainly on my search, was a photograph of a lady. I think she had a wolf on her back. And so it was obviously a manipulated image in some way. But so when you're saying a painterly shot, that's actually falling into a style that you obviously like, maybe, or that you're keen to follow, or that, you know, that's what you think fine art is. But in actual fact, it doesn't have to be that. So, okay, how do we go about adding creative shoots to our portfolio? So first things first, it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. I started off with wild horses. Now, obviously the New Forest ponies in the snow, tick. I then very quickly went down to Dartmoor and Exmoor, photographed the ponies on the moorlands there, spent time looking at them, time photographing them, time seeing something, just developing, and then maybe up to like the Scottish Highlands, looked across the country and where wild ponies roam, and also thought about my current network and who was in who had native ponies. So you could think about wild horses in this country and organize a shoot very easily. I mean, all you have to do is jump in the car and drive to the New Forest, and then if you rock up outside my gate, you'll find a herd of ponies that you can photograph. Or you can do it off the back of your portrait sessions. So there are some examples, although not in this presentation. Many of you might know my sort of hand and horse picture. That was off the back of a portrait session. So we had a sort of 20-minute slot at the end where we did something a bit more creative. I've put in your garden because it's very true. This picture of this horse here was in my back garden in the stables. It was a horse we owned, a big Clydesdale called Charlie, and so I spent quite a lot of time photographing. Oh, Hannah appears to be, oh, there we go. You might be able to see
assistant.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Come behind my, oh no, actually it will be showing them that one, won't it? So you can see the hand and the horse there. That was off the back of a portrait session. So you can basically bolt it on to any client sessions you have, and we will talk about that a little bit in a minute. You can also do it in your back garden, so don't feel that you have to go flying abroad to get fine art imagery. You absolutely don't, in any way, shape or form. It is on your back doorstep. It's just about recognizing the opportunity.
I have a question.
Yes.
With the horse in hand, did you set that up, or did it happen in front of you and you were knowledgeable enough to shoot it?
Oh no, I doubt it. I think so. If I remember rightly, I recognized how beautiful the stable was and how beautiful the wall was behind. And I, at the time, was testing compositions. And so I had given myself a little sort of boundary box and said, okay, within this space, I want to try as many little compositions as I can. So I'm not sure that I knew what I was doing when it happened.
Who does?
No, never. And then you could go all across the world and decide that you want to photograph Frisian horses, Spanish horses, French horses, Portuguese horses, Californian horses, whatever it is, or specific breeds that are across the world. I mean, obviously the Kawasaki horses? No?
I think that's a motorbike. I don't know, maybe.
From Nepal, is it? What I'm talking about.
No.
Anyway, that's one that's still on my list. I would love to do, with the guys with the big eagles, they gallop across. So I'm sure someone's going to write in the chat where I'm talking about.
I think Josh is very kindly adding the horse in hand image into the chat, because we've all just realised in the chat that they can see the slideshow, not you and me.
Oh.
Thank you, Josh. She's popped it there in the chat so you can see exactly what we were talking about.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
The Przewalski horses. Yes, thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay, so international shoots. You could, if you have a goal to photograph lots of different breeds, you may think, well, perfect opportunity, let's go traveling, I can do it, let's aim for lots of different countries and go and find the horses there. So first things first, you need to set a goal list. You need to plan how many shoots this year you want to achieve that would come under your fine art photography portfolio. and think about creating a series or a collection from a shoot or a combination of shoots. So you may, like I said, choose breeds. So you may do a series of Frisian horses. Think about your location, think about your models. But the most important thing to do is to make a plan initially. And you know this from all our webinars, we talk about planning and planning and planning. Keep planning. So 20 minutes, that's all you need. You initially want to decide what you want to achieve. So actually in the chat, guys, can you guys, if you think in your minds now, if I'm going to go out and do a fine art shoot, what straight away do I want to achieve? Do I want to achieve galloping horses? Do I want to achieve detail shots? Do I want to achieve fashion inspired portraits of horses and humans? Do I want to create a
It always
series?
irritates me that Em can always build up in her mind. She can just rattle off amazing ideas one after the other, and so many of us sitting here going,
or a series in a stable, or a series of foals. What is it now? Can some of you just put in the chat? Or a series of black and white images, series of black and white details, or abstract movement of horses, which of course you see quite a bit of that in my work. No one's writing in the chat
about what they'd like to.
What would be your first goal? What do you want to achieve?
I would imagine people want to do it, but there's a block, there's something that's stopping them.
Silhouette, black and white. Nice, Tiffany. Black and white mostly. Let's try an original shot. That would be interesting. Detail close-up shots. Okay, so for those of you, a native breed, lovely. Close-up black and whites, yeah. Polo ponies, lovely. Icelandic horses. Okay.
Oh, I love the
all fantasy horses. That's interesting. Yeah, so that will take a bit of storyboarding. Color black background, nice. Composites, cool. Woodlands. Okay, so you guys now, right, the ideas are flowing now. So the first thing you must do is plan. Plan. So let's say you've decided you're going to attempt 3 separate fine art shoots this year to get your portfolio off the ground. So now we go, okay, I just saw one fairy tale. Right, I'm going to have a fairy tale theme. How am I going to do that? So you're going to want to research on Google, Pinterest, Google Images, search wide terms. So don't necessarily put in fine art horse photography. Go for art, or say, okay, so the fairy tale one, I would be Googling fairy tales. Look at the images that spark interest and see what you can pull from the internet. And then, or you might put in black and white abstract art. Have a look at what's online and see whether, you know, it might be 1 in 100 images that you go, oh God, I love that. I'm just going to take that and put it in a little file, or print it off and stick it on a little board, so that you've got an idea of what you like, why you've gone for fairy tale or why you've gone for a black and white series. And you need to just gather that inspiration so that you can start to formulate your own ideas, but from multiple sources. And then you need to go shoot it, but try not to put too many boundaries in your way, too many expectations on yourself. You need to plan it in terms of, you know, in your head what you think you want to achieve, and then you need to stop worrying about it, and you need to go out and shoot and play and experiment, and always be prepared for those moments when things come along that are different from what you imagined, but in many cases can be even better and something that you just weren't expecting. So shooting is the key. I would just start with one shoot. Don't over-egg it. Don't think, oh yeah, for this series, I'm going to need to book 8 separate models. Just try and nail one shoot first. And then it's critical, the editing phase, you have to be very harsh with yourself. Now, you have to remember that these are not shoots for clients. They are for yourself initially. And therefore, from one shoot, we would promote that you show a client 120 images. You are absolutely in no way, shape or form going to get 120 images from your first fine art shoot. The chances are you're going to come away with 3, 5 images that you really feel inspired by and that you want to put into your portfolio. So you do have to critique your work quite harshly, or it's worth getting someone else to critique your work. And you may show them 10 or 15 images and say, can you pick your favorite 5? And see, you know, from a variety of people where they land. And you may find that, well, you will find that there'll be 2 or 3 strongest images that everyone picks. Those go into your portfolio. It's always better to have one brilliant image than 100 half-baked ones. So developing your style, research. I mean, it's taken me a decade to get to where I am. I still, as an artist, feel all over the place. I still feel like I'm experimenting, I'm testing, I guess you could say I'm moving forward because I'm experimenting, but actually, you know, it's taken me a decade of experimenting. I should have grabbed some of my scrapbooks, because I've got about 10 that are like this thick, and it is what I would consider sort of rubbish. You know, it's me going, oh yeah, I'm going to just put a horse and a picture of a horse and completely cover it in gold leaf. And so I've tried it about 10 or 15 times and gone, yeah, that was rubbish, so I won't do that again. So it's full of stuff like that where I'm just experimenting and seeing what I can come up with. So you've got to give yourself time to develop. Don't rush the process. You can certainly start making money off the back of your fine art as soon as you have your first collection released. But in terms of developing your style, it's a journey, it's a marathon, it's definitely not a sprint. You just have a plan in your mind for each year and how you're going to develop and move forward with your fine art. Oh, sorry. Hannah just started giggling and then I read the comment. What's the full comment?
I have a gold leaf shoot on Thursday.
So when I said my attempt was rubbish.
That's because she's rubbish at it.
Yeah, it was because I didn't actually put the gold leaf on the horse. I put it on the photograph. So I had a photograph of a horse and I tried to colour it in gold leaf. And I tried it 10 or 15 times. And the results are in the scrapbook. They're not great, but there is something I love about them. Anyway, that would be amazing to try, and good luck, because that's cool.
It's very cool.
Very cool.
Very good.
So lots of research. If you're serious about getting into fine art, like I said, it's a marathon. You want to give yourself 5 years, say, in your mind to develop a style. So research is everything. You need to be really focused on what do you like to see when you're going out for a walk. What catches your eyes? What colors are you inspired by? What textures are you inspired by? When you're looking through magazines, why do you stop on that photograph of a massive yacht sailing across the Mediterranean?
Well, manifestation.
Yeah. Or, you know, when you're flicking through magazines, when you're walking around a craft fair, what do you stop at? What are you inspired by? Collect and gather all the stuff you love and put it in a scrapbook. Keep it in piles in your studio, wherever you want to do. But you need to compile all that so that over time, subconsciously, you start to produce work that has elements of those things in. And if you can recognize patterns and similarities within those collections, you know, the stuff you're gathering, then you can deliberately try and include that in your shoots. And then, of course, you know, shoot, always. The best thing is always to shoot. You can collect and hoard as many bits of inspiration as you want, but if you never go and shoot, you're never going to actually create that fine art collection. So think about themes as well within the material that you collect. So do you have a preferred color palette? Do you have a preferred medium? And for anyone who knows or follows my work on Emily Hancock Art, you'll see that I use a lot of material and foliage and, you know, fabric and texture in my work. And that's because that's what I found myself collecting, and that's what I found myself drawn to. So I've brought that into my photography work. Although that's another stage on from what we're talking about, because we're talking about purely photography here. So get out and shoot. Absolutely. Okay. So presenting your images. Now, I said we would talk briefly about this. If you're doing portrait photography at the moment and you've got clients that you're already booked in the diary, it makes sense for you to start to try some of your ideas during those sessions, because they're already booked in the diary, they're already set up. Now, my recommendation would be that you speak to the client and say, okay, we're going to do your normal portrait session, but I wonder whether you would be prepared for me to grab an extra 20 minutes at the end of the session in order to test out some new ideas and experiment just for 20 minutes to see if I can develop the fine art photography side of my business. Now, if you feel the client is going to be up for that, great. If you feel they need a little encouragement, explain what you're going to do and maybe offer a small fine art print if you manage to capture something. But if you could bolt it on 20 minutes on to the end of the session, then that's the easiest thing to do. Now, before that session, you need to go armed with the outline of what you want to do. So is it going to be the horse by itself? Is it going to be the horse in the stable? Is it going to be the horse by itself in the field? Is it going to be the horse running around the field? Is it going to be a human and horse portrait shot in a different style, like I said, fashion inspired or whatever it could be? And so you need to have that plan, because at the end of a portrait session, your client is not going to have that much longer left in them to give to you in terms, or the horse, in terms of they'll be tired from the session that they've already had. So you do need to be really prepared. Now, once you've shot that series of images, I personally would split the portrait session from the fine art images. So when you do the slideshow at the end, you create the portrait viewing, and then you have maybe a black screen that comes up with fine art images, or you know, think of a nice title, and then go into the fine art selection. You may present them in a different way. So you might present them already in like a big chunky mount, and you may just show them 3 images of details or 3 images of their horse galloping in black and white and abstract. But you present them in a very different way from your portrait viewing. But they are bolted on the end. And I used to make extra sales off the back of that. And at some point I did go to a separate price guide, because the images that I was presenting were only going to be presented as 30-inch full bleed images with a very thin black frame. And if they wanted them, they could purchase them for X. So that's an easy way of starting your fine art portfolio. Yes, Hannah.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you're doing that, do you have to come up with a different idea on every end of shoot 20 minutes, or could you keep trying the same thing?
No, you can keep trying the same thing, because it may be over time that those images gather together as a collection of abstract horses galloping in fields or detail shots of horses. It doesn't matter.
So a great question from Apple user. What about consent for selling?
So I would always recommend that you get consent for selling, because that's the cleanest way to do it. Now, of course, no one could tell this shot of the mane that's on the right hand side here. No one could tell whether that was my horse, their horse, or someone else's horse. So, you know, consent on this sort of image, actually, there would be no damages if someone, you know, it's.
But that's why you would offer them potentially a small mounted print as a thank you, because we're out of a commission shoot now and we're back into maybe in the portrait world, when you ask a model to photograph for you, to film for you, or an influencer to work with, there's a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
And therefore that's why Emily suggested a fine art print, because that's your way of thanking them for giving you a full model release that you can put forward.
And also you have to be very open and honest, you know, saying that you want to develop your fine art photography side of the business so that you're able to sell images of horses to multiple people, so that many people who don't own their own horses or do can enjoy horses on their walls as fine art prints. And I always think it's always better to be completely open, honest, and transparent. And so if you need a model release because the horses are recognizable or the people are recognizable, then absolutely. Much of the work that is very abstract or of details, you couldn't actually tell whether it was one horse or another. So I think is less important. But, you know, if you're that person, just stay above the line and make sure you have a release. So the other way you can do it is by exhibiting your work. So build a collection, let's say details of a horse. You've got, let's call it 20 or 30 pieces in this collection, but maybe you only have 15. Doesn't really matter. There are no rules around this. Remember that. So I've got 20 images, all very beautiful details of a horse. Maybe that's just suggestive that it's a horse. You couldn't necessarily know it was or not, because it's all about the hair and the texture and the vibe of something fluffy and beautiful underneath it, right? And you're going to present it as an exhibition. Now, you may do this in like a group show. If you Google local artist group shows or local photography exhibitions, you will find lots of places that you could exhibit your work and be involved in exhibitions. And so that's a really good way of getting your work out there. The other way is individually. So you put on your own exhibition, which is what I did for the New Forest Snowy Ponies. I went and hired a barn, produced a load of my work as large size fine art prints, invited 150 people along, had an auction, linked myself to a charity, got press involved. So, I mean, that was a lot of work and that was hard work, but I was early 20s, absolutely gunning for my career as a photographer. And so put 150% into making that happen. And that was a major success for me early on in my career. And then off the back of that, I had lots of invitations to, as an example, I did one exhibition in Salisbury. And I think they were with a finance company. It was either finance or insurance, or it might have been solicitors, something like that. And me and another artist, another equine artist, so I was the photography fine art and she was, I think, oil paintings. And we came together, they invited us to fill their walls with fine art equestrian work, and then they had a massive opening evening, invited all their clients along, we invited our guest list along, and then the exhibition stayed up for a month. And that was a really nice intro. It felt very safe. It was with another company. So probably through a friend of a friend who said, oh yeah, she loves your work, I've showed her your work or something. And then, you know, that's how it always pans out. So that's a really another good way of presenting your work. And then obviously another option is on your website, and to actually build a shop of your fine art images and sell them directly through your website. So it's very easy nowadays to create shops. You can, I mean, I say very easy, but I don't do it. I get someone else to do it. But you can, you know, there's lots of experts everywhere that can bolt a shop onto your website. So that's a good option as well. So the one thing that really drove me to pursue fine art photography, particularly after I had my children, was that I could create passive income. So I could create multiple sales from one image. And to me, this is golden, because in the portrait market, I found that I would get a new client, I would photograph for them, and they would purchase the images. And then other than a bit of marketing, those images were then decommissioned, like they were archived essentially. And to me, when I reduced my hours because of my children, this seemed like a long process to get one sale. Whereas I knew that I could firstly get rid of the client bit. I didn't need to hustle for the client. I could just go out and do a shoot, produce some images, and then sell them multiple times over. Sometimes one image selling 10, 20, 30, 50 times. And even though I've shot it in 2009, I can still sell it today, which isn't possible with a client shoot. So this was a real sort of eye-opener for me to have an extra income stream. There's also commercial use. So for licensing, have many images around the world on various books.
Your mum's so famous.
Oh yeah, so that's slightly sideways from this, but so you can license your work around globally. What I was just about to say was that many of my shots have been sold for like book covers or to be included within books. I can't even think, there's so much.
There's a museum in Germany that someone visited recently and sent Emily a picture saying, did you know you're part of the welcome catalogue, just because the image is so beautiful. But it's just because it's been licensed, and quite often you don't know what it's licensed for, so you're just like, yeah, great, I'll take the money. And Hannah's reference to my mum's so famous is that for a period of a few years, I photographed a lot of lifestyle imagery with like grandma and my daughter and my mum and my son, and then license those images. And one image that just pops up every year and people remind me every year is I licensed a piece to Moonpig, and they use it every year of my mum and my daughter when she was 1 year old, just laughing in the forest or something. So it's a good one because that still earns me royalties. And then the other thing you can do with your fine art photography is create products. So cards, you know, like note cards, tote bags, notebooks. No, they won't be able to see it because, well, some people can, depending on what view they've got. Oh, I see. But look how beautiful that scarves, tea towels, all sorts of stuff. So you can really go much broader than just a fine art print. You can go with products as well.
Okay, so self-commissioning. This is exactly what I was just talking about, where you don't have to have a client to get you to do the shoot. This is about you coming up with an idea. You work out what location you want to do. Now, if it's difficult for you to travel, right, you're going to say, my back garden. Okay, how am I going to photograph in my back garden? Okay, well, I've got a neighbor with a native pony, or I've got a neighbor with a Frisian horse, or I've got a neighbor with your bog standard Joe pony, and I'm going to get them to come over. The only model I need is the horse. I don't need a person. That's if you want to go without person. And what style am I going to do? I'm going to go detail shots with directional light. I'm going to go abstract fur images, hair, fur, either one. And self-commission yourself, okay? Work it out, get it done, and look at the results, and then decide whether they are saleable images. And if you are going to then sell your images, you need to work out how you're going to do that, which we just discussed was either a commercial use, like to magazines, to licensing companies, or via products. Or you may also consider, I have quite a few interior designers that sell, purchase my work on behalf of clients. So there's many ways you can sell, but if you can just formulate a little plan, go out and do it. It may be that you decide, okay, I'm going to set myself a massive trip. I'm going to go to Iceland. I'm going to photograph the horses when they're being brought down off the mountains. So either before or after the snow, either one, can't remember which. They go up and down the mountains basically, and they get herded off. So I'm going to plan a trip to do that, and it will be in this month, and this is what I want to achieve, and this is the result, and how I'm going to sell the images after I've created the collection.
I think the best thing Emily ever told me when I started this journey is that every time you go and practice, especially with self-commissioning, every time you go and practice, you never need to show anyone anything.
No.
So if you don't produce anything you're super proud of, you don't develop what you thought you were going to develop, that's fine. No one ever needs to see. They're sat on a hard drive. Through lockdown, I've got some interesting stuff, I tell you guys, and no one's ever going to see it, but it got me to the place I needed to get to.
Yeah, it develops your style.
Yeah.
And put no expectations on yourself. The worst thing to do is put pressure on the outcome, because more often than not, it won't happen. Unlike a portrait session where you can pretty much guarantee you've got the horse, you've got the owner, you know your poses, find some nice locations, it's going to deliver this result. That's very, you know what's coming basically, other than a few variations of locational type stuff. You pretty much know what you can produce. On these fine art shoots, you have to be willing to be completely free in your mind to go in any direction that your imagination wants to take you in that particular moment. When you're stood in a field with a galloping horse and you're seeing something unfold in front of you, you've got to be willing to change and experiment and do something that you wouldn't usually do, without putting expectations on yourself to suddenly create a masterpiece. And I can only say that from experience, because I have gone through my career consistently wanting to photograph masterpieces every time, and it doesn't happen. It literally doesn't happen. So I'm just telling you to jump that step and not worry about that, because the masterpieces will come, but you have to just allow them.
I have got a question. Do you find images sell better or easier without a person?
No, not necessarily, because you could, you know, a person can just be a hand or can be a shape. It doesn't have to be a recognizable person. So, I mean, the hand and the horse shot is probably my bestseller. over the years. So I would consider that a horse and a human piece. Yeah. So no, it's to be honest, this is not about what sells best. This is about how you create and developing your style, because the one big pull to this genre of photography is that you don't have a brief from a client. You don't have to do anything. So if you'd rather not photograph a horse and a human together, or you don't feel inspired to create with a horse and a human, just use a horse or just use a human. It doesn't, you know, it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's the wonderful thing about it. There's no stress about this, because you may have an overall goal to increase your income passively via fine art photography, but it doesn't have to be of this shot, and it doesn't have to be of the next shot. It could be a different shot that you shot in 2009. It really doesn't matter. Yeah.
Just want to celebrate with Christine Dunnington, who just did a little jig on her video.
Yes, we saw you.
Okay.
So here, this is a classic case of these were shot in my back garden with 2 horses my family owned, with a 10-minute session, and presented together beautifully. They hold impact, and these images have sold and have made income for me. And I think they were shot, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe. At least. I'm making myself younger than I am there. So don't freak out that it has to be something huge.
Great question from Sue. Do you do your own printing? One barrier for setting up online shop is the cost of good quality printing.
So I don't do my own print. I don't, the images I sell, I have printed with the print space in London.
So would you say this is more about Sue's price? If she's finding good quality printing too expensive to make money on what she's selling?
They're definitely not expensive enough. You can't, bye Carol.
Bye, Carol.
You can't compromise the quality of your product for your price. You need to have the top quality product and then work out what your price needs to be so that you're making money off the back of that. And so here you can see these are the white horses of the Camargue, and a really spectacular experience on top of then creating beautiful work as well. And so, you know, you may want to go ahead and plan a couple of big trips and go really outside of being at home and what we can produce here. But don't put barriers on yourself. Don't think it has to be this in order, or, you know, don't think you have to go abroad in order to capture this. Yes, to photograph the white horses of the Camargue, you do, but not horses galloping through water, you don't. So yeah, it's a wonderful place to be for your creativity and your personal and professional creative development. And it's a wonderful journey to go on. And actually, when you've got into it, even just for a year, you'll see such a leap in your creativity and the difference from your very first shoot to your last shoot, that it is a wonderful place to be able to create another income stream from. So unbelievably, we're at 5 to 11.
I know.
Really, I can't believe it. So before we do Q&A, Hannah's just going to take over quickly, because as you guys always know, we do have in-person courses as well. We offer a lot of training, albeit when I say a lot, it's actually very limited, because we both have busy businesses doing our own photography. So we have got a fine art course coming up where we will be creating images for your portfolio that are fine art photography worthy, and Hannah's going to tell you a little bit about that now.
Yeah. So it's on the 6th and 7th of June, 2 days. We've only got 2 spaces left, and we're very happy to jump on a call with anyone who's interested in joining us, because we understand that, you know, taking 2 days out of your business and your family can be a lot. What we've done for this fine art course is that the photo shoots we're going to set up with you guys are going to be replicable by you can replicate them yourselves, so
easily.
So it's wonderful to have a big production. If you have smoke machines and wind machines and big backdrops and, you know, artificial lighting and a whole big team, that's great. And then you come back to your studio and you think, where do I go from here? So what we want to teach you for 2 days is how you can take a nice looking horse with a very easy to find outdoor school or a barn or a normal yard, and then make a fine art collection using that. No big productions, and we will be walking away on those 2 days with portfolio ready images that will have you commissioned for, or will give you the confidence to self-commission. So it's over the 2 days. We've got 2 photo shoots, 1 on each day, and then the other half of the day will be theory in the studio. And we're also going to teach you how you can get creative, how you can build your mood board, where are you going to find your ideas, how are you going to be inspired, how to remove those creative blocks as well, because we all will sit here and think, yeah, but that's been done. Well, I won't do it any better than that photographer. Well, it's going to look like I'm copying. But we'll show you where you start and how you can make it your own and stand out from the crowd. So it's £1,200 for the 2 days. As I said, we've only got 2 spots left. It's a really tight group. So when we're together, everyone helps everyone else. We keep it nice and small and intimate. And Joss is on food. So anyone who's ever had a lunch from Joss, the lunches, Imogen said that she could sell our courses just on the food only. So I believe that as well. The food is epic. But if anyone does want to have a phone call with us, so we are filming tomorrow and Wednesday, but we can carve out a little bit of time on Thursday, and then we're both presenting on Friday separately. But if you do want a phone call with us, please let us know ASAP, and then we can get you booked on.
The other thing to know is that the fine art course, what happens in the course of those 2 days is we leave everything else behind us. So all our normal worries, concerns, our to-do lists, and we break down the restrictions and rules we put on ourselves. And we can go into this state of, I've gone into complete darkness, haven't I? We can break down all those usual restrictions we put on ourselves and really dream big and actually dig into our imaginations and come up with things that you never would have thought of, but actually is deep in your subconscious. And we're going to be able to explore them really freely, and you'll come away with a real, you know, kind of action plan to go forward and create in a way that you haven't done before.
Yeah.
So
I just replied, Steph, the price was $1,200 for the 2 days. And there's loads of local, many people that come and do courses with us. So we tend to do courses on Tuesday and Wednesday, but most people will come and stay from Monday to Friday because you're in the New Forest. Why not come and enjoy a little New Forest holiday? Emily, your light is getting worse.
I need to be like this.
Thank you. There's a few people who've put your email addresses and phone numbers, so I'll give you a shout this afternoon.
And just to note as well, we're 2 open books, so anyone that's trained with us before knows that will answer any question you have. Yeah. So let's move on to Q&As.
Okay. So from Andrew, is it better to shoot for a single image or a panel of 3 or 5? What is popular with regards to sales?
So it's really interesting you asked this, because I've just been going through my collections, and I have oh, sorry, there we go. Let me try that direction. Is that better? Okay. Oh, look, and you can see some work behind me possibly. Or you could stop sharing the screen now. And in which case they might be able to see my so I've just been going through my collections, and I have a collection that's called Soul, and the reason they're called Soul is because they're images that fitted no other collection. They were shot and I felt worthy of being available on the open market. And so I actually have 32 or 35 of those that don't fit any other collection. And then I have other series that, well, one series is 4 images. There's series that are 15, 26 images. So there's a variety. And the question was, do they sell better?
So is it better to shoot for a single image or a panel of 3 to 5? So I would say, and I'm just asking, if you're doing details, would you shoot 5 ears, mane, neck, shoulder, tail, or would you go for let's nail the ears, or present the ears on its own?
I would do both. You can never tell what you're going to get from a shoot. So I might think in my head that I want to photograph details of a horse and present them as a collection of 10, but actually what I found is that I have mastered the art of photographing the tail in some way that absolutely speaks to me. And so now I have a collection of tails, right? I have a collection of 3 or 5 tails, and actually I went thinking I was going to do the whole horse, but I didn't. So don't put the limit on yourself to do one or t'other. See what comes after, and that's where harsh critique and editing come in.
So do you detach yourself from every piece you create so that you can critique it properly?
Yes, 100%.
So you're not emotionally connected?
Always emotionally connected and always trying not to be, basically.
Just thought I'd put that in there so everyone else can feel better, because we're all emotionally connected to our images. Lisa says, I'm wanting, so you're getting closer and closer. You're going to make me giggle.
I can't, I'm sat in the sun.
Why don't you just come here?
Can I do that? Can I come on to yours? Oh, there we go.
You can. So Lisa says, I'm wanting some coaching. I'm wanting some coaching in photographing horses on a background, or cut out and composite onto a background. Is the course for this? So interesting.
Okay, so we, like Hannah said, we are not going on this course. We're not going to produce anything that's going to take a team to create. And photographing horses on backgrounds, I would say falls into that category. I've got a series of images that actually, if you look on YouTube, there's a YouTube video, isn't there, of me doing a fine art shoot. It was a 14-hour day. I think we had 7 people involved, multiple horses. Now, of course, you know, photographing a horse on a background doesn't have to be that complicated. But if you want the results to be...
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
We could show you how to photograph a horse on top of a hill on a white cloudy day. You get down low enough and technically you've got a white background. Yeah. But you've had to compromise the angle you're shooting at. You'll have to compromise where the horse is looking, where the horse is posing. So it depends how much you value the outcome. So you can go and try it with anything. We've used black sheets, white sheets, but if you want that creme de la creme, it's a production.
But so in answer to your question, we're not going to be photographing horses on backgrounds for this course.
But we could probably show you why you don't need to.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is true. Yeah, absolutely. We can create a background without having a backdrop.
So Imogen, it's true the lunches are the bomb. Thanks, Imogen. Steph, I've answered you. Rebecca, I concur. Yummy, yummy lunches. Lisa, I'm new to the equine photography business. Should I work together with a local influencer, and or should I offer free photo shoots in the local barns?
So I'm not sure whether this relates to portraits or fine art. The only reason I say that is because fine art photography is completely self-commissioned at this point, unless you're working commercially to produce fine artwork. So if you're talking about portrait photography, then absolutely you should work with local people, and offering free photo shoots is not something we do in terms of the free bit. There's always an exchange of value involved. But yes, local barns, etc.
I would say if you're new to it and you want to start a fine art collection, is exactly where I started, was my local. I mean, I have a horse, so I started on the DIY yard that I kept my horse on, and just started in the stables and got some nice dark backgrounds. So if that's the question, I would say you do use your local barn,
yeah,
and go from there. Joe on lunch. Joss's lunch is the best, and that's from Joss. Defo the lunches. How do you get sales? How do you make yourself known to companies so you sell your photos to magazines, designers? Oh, such a great question.
Okay, well, first things first, you need to know how you're presenting your images. Research local companies. You can sell to anyone, right?
Yeah,
you can literally sell to anyone. Many of my first series that I shot sold to people that I just know, that are in my network, that have followed my work for a while. Completely random people, didn't fall into any category other than they were in my network in some way, be it school mums or people who came to the training barn, or so
well, the bigger answer is on our 2-day course. We're going to walk through.
we will talk about selling. It's imperative that you make connections. Research places that, so as an example, right, Ralph Lauren, if you walk into any of their stores, they have equestrian images on their walls. Who buys them from where? That's what you need to research. How is a shop selling clothes buying imagery? How is a hotel buying imagery? How is a magazine buying imagery? And how are you going to present your work so that they know you exist, so that they know you're on the planet, and you have work that is worthy of going on their walls? So for me, it's about a lot of research and then compiling your work and presenting it to those people.
Good question from Delphine. Do you limit the number of selling per photography or photograph? Indeed, if you sell too many of one image, you cannot go on selling it very expensive, because it becomes too common and not pure fine art anymore. What are the rules?
So just remember, other than maybe following the law, there's no rules in this world, particularly to do with creativity and how you sell things and blah, blah, blah. You know, you can decide how you want to sell your work. Now, you can go down the limited edition print method if you want. So you could take an image and go, I'm going to only produce 10 of these pieces ever in the world, and that's it. Now, you're going to have to put a seriously high price on them, and you're going to have the network and the connections and the position in your being an artist to limit this piece to 10 images, in my opinion. Generally, for photographers, anything under 100 editions is considered okay. If you're talking top gallery represented fine art photographers who sell most of their work by galleries, you're talking 1 of 3, 1 of 10 max.
Yeah.
I do a combination. Nothing that is 1 of 10. I generally do 1 of 20 or 25. But ridiculously, and when I learned this, I was like, well, that's pretty pointless, is that is of a particular size, style, shape, media. So I could do 1 of 25 of this particular image as a 30-inch fine art paper, whatever, something else, right? And I could sell the same image as a 6x4 100 times with a glossy finish. And those two things would not be the same, apparently. So it's a bit of a silly one. I do open editions for many of my work so that I can just continue to sell them. And let's face it, selling, 250 of the same image at £295 is better than selling 3 images at like £1,000 or something, and to be able to keep selling at that price.
I think as well, if you're selling digitally, you're going to have to sell it hundreds of thousands of times for it to become overused.
Yeah, I think the world is much, much, much bigger than we all imagine it is. So I wouldn't get yourself too hung up on that. If you want to go limited editions, go limited editions. If you want to just keep selling prints to anyone who wants to buy them, then keep them as open editions for now anyway.
Is there one medium you prefer, e.g. canvas, fine art paper, aluminium? Jan, I can't believe you made me say aluminium when I can't say it. I like a textured paper for all my stuff. So I have I print on German etching Hallelujah paper 310 GSM,
from the print space. That's my preferred choice of paper. But this is all about your style, what you present. It's not a cookie cutter. You can't just go, oh, I'll do what Emily does.
No, and you researched that paper for over a few years as well.
Well, it just because that's what I like. That's the wonderful thing about this way of photographing, is that you choose what you love and then you try and sell it.
Yeah. Beth says, hope this isn't a silly question. There's no silly questions. I keep getting drawn to images where the horse and owner are eye to eye. I'd love to have a go at it. Any tips?
No, just set up a model and a horse and go and shoot it.
But shoot it in crop. So we've seen it time and time again where people have shot it like this. So shot it here and then zoomed into this. You actually do need to shoot it. So you need to book a horse that's going to likely stand there rather than a horse that's going to headbutt its owner.
Yeah. Also, experiment. Shoot it outdoors, shoot it indoors. Shoot it from a low angle, shoot it from a high angle, shoot it from underneath, shoot it from over top, shoot it stood on your head.
Yep, absolutely.
Like just
overexposed, underexposed, all of it.
Yeah, change your camera settings, see whether you prefer it with movement in, pin sharp, test your editing style on it. So just take that one thing and shoot as much as you can in every which direction, experiment and see what comes to the other side.
And Anna's just Anne is saying, true, I bought a limited edition canvas in a large size. The same image is also available as a limited edition Padra in a small amount of print size. Yeah. I have a question for you guys. Who feels like they don't know where to start? Because I reckon this is the biggest thing in fine art photography, is that we all love the idea. We see it in magazines and then we freak ourselves out. Yeah. It's really hard, but as Emily said earlier, if you take the pressure off of yourself right now, just go and create something. When I was learning composites in lockdown, I signed up to a big mentorship. It was over online. And it snowed one day and I thought, I know what I'm going to do. And I managed to get a composite of myself. So it was a self-portrait on a tripod with my clicker. And I composited my scarf going 19 times out into the sky. So I kept flicking it up and I had to, in Photoshop, put the scarf there and then add the scarf there and then add the scarf and then a big coat. I mean, no one will see the light of day because it's terrible. But now it's lovely. I also photograph my niece and nephew around places in their homes, and I put them into a doll's house that I photographed separately, and then photographed each room, and then put the lights on in the doll's house. I don't know when that's going to come back into my work right now with horses, but no one's ever going to see that ever. But you have to go and start.
You have to go through it. I see Amelia said, I do see creatively, just not with the selling. And that's really interesting because it's different to sell fine art images, because when we're photographing a portrait client, we have a person who's invested in the images. Yeah. They've booked you so that they can purchase the images from you of themselves and their horse. When we create fine artwork like this, we have a much bigger audience because it could sell to anyone, but we have to hone in on the people who actually want to purchase it and why they would purchase it. So the selling bit is definitely, in my opinion, harder to achieve initially. So the photography bit is easier to achieve because it's purely self-commissioned, and you can go out into your back garden and photograph a horse's eyes today. Whereas with portrait clients, you actually have to go and promote yourself and sell your services to them.
So make them look great.
And make them look great. So the photography is easier to get into. But with the client, it's like you put the work in initially to get the sale. Here, you do the fun, creative bit, and then you have to put the effort in to sell and have your work visible to the right people in order to sell the work. However, once you've done that research, so over the last decade, you know, I've made networks, I've made connections globally, that my work sells, and it's just another lovely income stream that keeps ticking over. And it's not that I've stopped researching or stopped connecting with people, but you're building on that network that purchase from you and build collectors. So I quite, you know, often find that people who purchase one piece, they go on and purchase 2 and 3 and 4. And
like your local equine dentist that's just purchased an enormous piece from you.
Well, they actually commissioned a piece.
They came through a friend, didn't they?
No, they had followed me for years on Facebook, but because he was in fact our horse vet, so we did know him, but he'd been sitting in the back, you know, in the background for years. And then I put one post up on a piece, and he was like, "I need that for my new."
So you never know. Never know. And then last question, Andrea. I am a dog photographer, have no experience with horse photography. Do I need to get the horse portrait training in first?
No, not at all. So it doesn't matter which way you learn. If you want to do the fine art stuff, just crack on with the fine art stuff. If you want to add portrait into your business, you know.
Also, if humans aren't your thing, like, for most of us, we'd rather be hanging out with animals anyway. Yeah. But if you don't want to direct a human, this is a great place.
It is, and that's one thing that I love about it. I get to choose who I work with, when I work with them, where I work with them, and how I work with them.
Yeah.
You know, when
you're not dictated to.
You're not dictated to, but when you're doing portrait clients, you know, you're pretty much going to their yard or the location they want. You have to shoot for that client because they've booked you. Whereas with this, you pick who you want to shoot with. So we are now at 20 past 11.
Yeah, I can't believe you ran over so much.
What a lovely morning spent with all of you. I hope you have enjoyed it and gained some insight and hopefully some inspiration. We'd love to fill the last 2 spots on our fine art course if anyone's keen. I suspect, I'd like to think we might sell them today. So we've got to know how much food to buy. That'll be exciting. It'll be a good session. Thank you so much for all the thanks, and we're glad.
So lovely to see you all.
Good, lovely that you've got lots of inspiration. Brilliant. So well, keep us up to date, and if we can be of any further help, Zoom calls, one-to-one sessions, mentoring, anything like that, just call on us and we'll be there for you. All right.
Speak to you soon, guys.
Bye. Bye.